All right, we
Love
should
that.
be live.
All right, all right. All right, well, welcome everybody. It is Wednesday, December 8th, 21. This is the Permissionless Software Foundation Technical Steering Committee meeting. Let's go ahead and go around and do a quick introduction for everybody. I'll start. I am Chris Troutner. I help found the Permissionless Software Foundation, and I maintain the fullstack.cash infrastructure, which is sort of the commercial arm of the PSF. Aaron, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name's Aaron Shoemaker. I work with the PSF with NFT assets, 3D capture, which I'm doing some right back here, and in stuff with integrating crypto into the metaverse and also some of the dev school stuff.
Go ahead, David.
I am David R. Allen, and I have been a supporter of Chris since before he was born. And just to put things into context, Chris has managed to gather around him some of the best programmers in the space, and I'm all for the principles of the Permissionless Software Foundation. So it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be able to contribute. Thank you.
Go ahead, Stoyan.
My name is Stoyan Zhekov, and I'm helping with maintaining the JavaScript libraries for the PSF. This is all from me.
All right. Wowzers, do you want to give an introduction? It's fine if you don't.
Just a user investor enthusiast and love the PSF.
All right, on. Well, welcome.
Thanks so much.
All right, well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And as always, our agenda is on GitHub under the Software Foundation GitHub group, under the TSC repository for Technical Steering Committee. We file them all as issues. And so as we grow, these meetings are an opportunity for us to, there's sort of this first half, which is to go through the agenda and celebrate our technical achievements over the last 2 weeks. And then after we go through the agenda, we kind of open it up to a roundtable discussion of sort of whatever is salient at that moment in time, whether it be a news item or some new tech thing or some community-based discussion. And in fact, one of the things I want to go into today is a continuation of a discussion we had going in the VIP Telegram channel around multi-signature wallets and creating a sort of minting council and sort of how we might go about doing that. Before we do that, let's start at the top. So PSF Core, it's a little bigger. PSF Core Software is our BCH API, BCH.js, Gatsby IPFS web wallet. There's not a lot to report in the category of projects right now. What we're doing in preparation for building out the DEXs, the decentralized exchanges, is we're starting to split out the Gatsby, the web wallet Gatsby theme that we maintain into Gatsby theme web wallet. This is going to be like our web 2.0 stack. It'll be just a very conventional theme. This is mostly what you see when you go to wallet.fullstack.cash. It's just this core wallet engine for a web wallet. It's intended to be forked and listed by other people. It just provides the basic send and receive Bitcoin Cash, send and receive SLP tokens. And that's being forked out of Gatsby IPFS web wallet, which is the legacy repo. This one's going to focus more on IPFS. It's going to focus on, whereas Gatsby theme weblet will be compilable into a Android and iOS app, phone app. Gatsby IPFS web wallet instead targets IPFS, so it's intended to be compiled to be distributed over IPFS as a standalone application. It's going to have its own IPFS node baked into it, so that basically we're trying to make this like the uncensorable version of the app. So you would open it, probably from Filecoin loaded through IPFS in your browser, it would spin up an IPFS node within the browser and connect directly to a wallet service through IPFS. And so all of these ways of doing it make it very difficult to censor. It should also make it usable in countries that are actively trying to censor access to the blockchain, like China or any other country that would block the internet. It should, doing it this way should allow a person to open the app in a web browser and then just have it just work and tunnel through any attempts, any firewalls or attempts at censorship. So that's how we're kind of separating these two code bases. Thanks. Yeah, guys, jump in if you have anything, if the thought occurs to you. Otherwise, I'll just ramble on and get through these things, but I welcome discussion. Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I got to a point where it's like I realized we're really chasing two distinct goals. I mean, one is we need to have a smooth interface that follows Web 2.0 best practices that companies are used for, that would want to whitelist. The IPFS stuff is just, it's clunky, but if censorship is a priority, then that's what it's built for. And so I just realized two code bases to pursue these two very different goals. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, well, a perfect example of this, real world and recent example of this is Uniswap. So Uniswap, the group of developers that own Uniswap.com was by the FCC, and they were forced under threat of violence to delist several of the tokens on their website. But because Uniswap is more than just the website at uniswap.com, it's a protocol, anyone can still trade these. In fact, they can still trade them through Shapeshift app as a front end instead of using uniswap.com. And there's other software you can use because it's a protocol. There's a very real scenario here where fullstack.cash to shut down in the future because it might offer REST API access to blockchain services, in which case the IPFS version will simply live on IPFS, and there's nothing that we can do or government entity can do to stop that. So it's sort of our trump card. It's our insurance program. It's like schmuck insurance. Yeah. All right, so we'll move on to the JSON RPC over IPFS and the pay-to-write database, which have become a big focus for our organization. I wanted to quickly review this Web 3.0 cache stack article I published last week, and the changes to IPFS BCH wallet consumer and PSF BCH wallet, which is our command line wallet. So I've talked in the past about So there's a link to this article here in the agenda. It's also on troutsblog.com, confused by this weird looking URL. And there's a link to it in the PSF Telegram channel. But if I scroll down, this is basically the Web 2.0 cache stack, where this is how every Web 2.0 application is built. High level is there's the top level application, the phone app that a person interacts with. There's some sort of integration library below that, which then communicates via a REST API to a backend REST server, and then that REST API is going to be connected to their infrastructure like databases. In the case of crypto, it's going to be connected to some indexer node. And so this is how everything's been constructed. And there's a big cost architecture in that this whole backend, it like by today's standards, in order to get fast performance, the good user experience that people are associate with this type of technology, it needs to live in the cloud. Like, it's not really feasible to run this on a home server connection. It's just there's too many other networking issues that happen, and that's why nobody really does it that way. And so because this has to live in the cloud, that means you have to pay to have all this infrastructure in the cloud. And in the case of cache, this is a significant amount of software. This is like at least three or more major pieces of software all working together that cost quite a bit to run on a computer. And if you don't pay those bills, all that infrastructure evaporates like smoke. And so this is sort of one of the, a lot of times I feel like trying to make crypto fit into this Web 2.0 framework is like a square peg in a round hole. And so over the last year of really thinking about this problem, I've come in the Web 3.0 cache stack. So the front end stays the same. That doesn't change at all. But instead of reaching a global backend, which you can still do, it's still an option. Basically, I just inserted this piece in the middle and this one little piece up top. So you can always circumvent that and go straight from the integration library to the REST API, and you're back to the original Web 2.0 model. So this model is backwards compatible. It can always fall back to the Web 2.0. But I recently released a piece of software called IPFS Service or IPFS BCH Wallet Consumer, and it's a mirror image to this IPFS BCH Wallet Service, which that talks to the REST API and then proxies the data on REST API over IPFS. And then on the other end, there's another IPFS which can then talk to the provider, the service provider, over IPFS, and then provide that data local REST API. And so to make this more like practical, a lot of us here are familiar with the Raspberry Pi 4s or the Pi 400, which is a Pi 4 in a keyboard format. Those computers are capable of running this local backend as well as the front end library. So you could run a copy of wallet.fullstack.cash locally, have it talk to this consumer, which is a very small, lightweight REST API. And then you can use all the conventional development tools for developing web apps, as you're just talking to a REST API, which is the industry standard, and everything's happening locally. And then just that wallet consumer is communicating over IPFS to a bigger backend. And we currently have 3 or 4 different backends available to choose from. So if one, you can switch to a different one. And so all this expensive infrastructure, the full nodes and the indexers and the databases, those are all running on computers with good internet connections, and which is much cheaper than running it in the cloud. And all the networking is being handled by IPFS, by this IPFS proxy. So this not only reduces the cost significantly of the Web 2.0 model, it also it encompasses the best of both Web 2.0 and Web 3.0 while mitigating the downsides, because you get fast responsiveness of a REST API, which can be in 3.0 with IPFS latency and connection times. You get this sort of redundant backend. You're not dependent on any one fixed backend. You have multiple backends to choose from. If one's down, you can just switch to them. And depending on your geographic location in the world, you're probably going to prefer one that's geographically closer to you, and that'll show latency, and the actually measures that and chooses the one with the best latency or the lowest latency. So yeah, I just want to encourage people to read this article, dig in a little deeper. This is focus a lot of my work over the next year. The DEXs that we're building are going to leverage this architecture, and we've got bounties out there for people to earn by setting up circuit relays and this global backend infrastructure. So if anybody wants to earn PSF tokens, that's a great way to do it every month. And we're in the process of oh, did you? Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to be rolling out 2 videos on this and going on the PSF website. But yeah, this whole front end and the local back end is what you would run on a Raspberry Pi or your home computer, any sort of low grade computer that software through IPFS can leverage the bigger, bulkier back end. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I encourage people to oh, go ahead, Stoyan.
I wanted to ask, is still the JSON RPC over IPFS still the only options? Because IPFS is not exactly for RPC calls. It's like this RPC is a little hack on top of it. Is it still the best option, or there is some better decentralized like RPC options in the moment?
Yeah, that's a good question. Aaron, by the way, they're saying that maybe they can't hear you. But Stoyan, okay. That's a really good question, Stoyan. So one of the main features of this architecture is that it's going to be really hard to get I've realized that it's going to be really hard to get developers to learn protocol, to learn this new JSON over IPFS JSON. And so what this does is it sort of hides all that. That's still being used between consumer and the service provider. That's what's proxying the API, but on either end, the developers are just using a REST API, and they don't have to think about it. And so it is still there. It is still there, and it is still used. And for power users, for developers who really want to like get into the nitty gritty, it's still there, and there's a lot of room for experimentation. Does that answer your question, or were you more focused on?
Because how to see the IPFS, people start to complaining that it's already pretty slow. Mm-hmm. So I thought because it's already a year we're working on this project, so in this year, is it already something better, or is it still the best option for decentralized RPC calls?
If you're trying to work directly with IPFS, I think it is the best option. It's not. It's more due to the nature of the protocol of IPFS. It's just not as smooth and easy and fast and reliable as a REST API is. It might be able to get there in money and effort, but also maybe not, just because of the nature of the beast. So that's why I thought it'd be better to basically wrap it inside of a REST API. I mean, I really took my time to make sure I was not reinventing the wheel when I created it, created the protocol. I reached out to a lot of people in IPFS to see if there was a better way to do it, and the answer no. I mean, there are ways of proxying other protocols over IPFS, but this is more of an IPFS native way to do it, and as a result, it's flexible and robust. And so, yeah, so it's not going to work for everybody, and it's not going to work for every project. And one of the things that sets our work apart from other people's is that we have a big focus on censorship resistance, and we're sort of planning out this scenario, network scenario, and we're really leaning into that and putting emphasis on that. Whereas I think a lot of projects, and in particular companies, products, particularly if they're like conventionally VC funded, they're not going to consider a adversarial scenario or a scenario with censorship. They're just going to assume that they're legal and they're going to do everything above board, and that's not something that they need to put a lot of time or effort into. And so it's not worth it for them to take on the extra baggage of this JSON RPC over IPFS. So I think that's one why we sort of worry about it, whereas other projects wouldn't worry about it. And so, yeah, that's also like underlying this entire conversation.
Well, yeah, and I think I got my audio working now, so I can kind of reemphasize for those who missed. I see censorship as not only a political thing, but an economic and business thing for the future, like you're saying. And that's why a lot of the reason I'm looking at it from both sides and saying, okay, down the line, you got Facebook who's trying to push the metaverse, and how easy would it be for them to censor other companies that are trying to build on the metaverse and take their stuff offline. And so building something with the IPFS, I see it as a necessity. When there's IPFS or Arweave, like you said, I can fire up a Raspberry Pi. I can run stuff right here from my house. And if more people have nodes in my local area, it actually will increase the speeds over time. So I see that as kind of investing into the infrastructure of the future.
Yeah. Yeah, well said, Aaron. And also, let me point out one thing that we get using this JSON RPC over IPFS, that this consumer can actually talk to, it looks in this diagram like it's talking to one single backend, but it can actually talk to multiple backends simultaneously. So one example of that would be the cache stack. It could be talking to multiple versions of the cache stack, and then if one fails, it just rotates. But it could also be talking to the write database, which is not part of the cache stack. And as far as the person running this, say like a front end developer and a minimum amount of back-end infrastructure, they run this consumer, and from their perspective, everything just gets automatically handled. And they're just dealing with one nice REST API to develop against. But what's happening under the hood is this JSON RPC over IPFS. It's able to talk to every single backend on the network, including the ones that we don't have planned or designed yet. It'll be able to find, figure out what service they offer, and then if we add a REST API endpoint for it'll be able to just automatically find and negotiate and consume those backend services. And so it's sort of taking this whole microservice idea and spicing it up a little bit. So I encourage people to check out this IPFS BCH wallet consumer. That's what I'm working on right now to sort of wrap REST API. And then PSF BCH wallet is our command line wallet. That's going to be the way to interact with that consumer REST API and control it, to be able to do fine-grained control on what backend are you talking to this other backend, how many IPFS peers am I connected to, how many circuit relays am I connected to. Those commands for sort of interrogating the consumers baked into this command line wallet. So let's go ahead and move on. So that's been getting a lot of attention this week. We've been working on the Avalanche X-Chain DEX for a couple months now. Work on that started October 15th. And we're making excellent progress. That's mostly being done by Gary. And we've got this AVX DEX. What it does is it's a prototype, and it currently only works on BCH, and he is in the process of refactoring it to work on the X chain. But we have a complete like trade workflow prototype already working, and now we just need to integrate it into this AVX DEX. And what it can do right now is it can create an order, and that's the first step of the sort of 3-step trade workflow. And it uses the pay to write database to essentially store this trade information, and that's essentially how two traders communicate through constructing these partly signed transactions and passing it back and forth. There's like 2 or 3 times until you end up with a complete transaction where both parties get what they want and they're happy, and neither party can sort of take advantage of the other. And that's what makes it trustless and atomic. Once it's complete, they both agree that there's no shady business going on, and it gets broadcasted, and then it's atomic. It either happens or doesn't, because it's just a single transaction. So we just got a matching grant from the eCash Global Network Council, the GNC, and so that was approved. They've made the first payment, which wasn't due until January 1st. So we're going to take this tech that we're building for Avalanche, and we're going to retrofit it to work on the eCash blockchain, and do the same thing next year. And so I'm pretty excited about it. And then we've already have the bridge technology developed, even though we don't really have it in use yet. So at some point, I'd really like to get this minting thing figured out, this multi-sig minting thing figured out, because then I'd feel a lot more comfortable setting up these bridges between Avalanche and eCash and Bitcoin Cash, and being able to use the Psf token as essentially a cross-chain medium for transferring value. You could move the Psf token across the 3 chains and then use that in the DEX as sort of, so if you have assets in one chain and you want to get assets in the other chain, that would be an excellent medium between the bridges and the DEXs to essentially move your assets with very low friction across chains.
Now,
so pretty excited. It's good to have some money, and it's good to have job security for Gary and Daniel, who are basically our workhorses moving all this stuff forward. So I'm just thrilled to
shout out to Gary and Daniel, by the way.
Have some money and work.
Shout out to Gary and Daniel.
Yeah, you guys are rock stars.
So when you say DEX, is it just like a token DEX, or is it we're actually going to be able to swap different chains?
It'll be a token DEX, and at least in its first iteration, it'll be just tokens for these currencies. So if you're on the Avalanche chain, it'll be a token for Avalanche. If you're on eCash, it'll be a token for eCash. It'll be so one token at a time, and this is all based on Vin Armani's original work with the swap protocol. That's how he was able to make it trustless and atomic.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that he does have a protocol worked out to do token to token exchanges, and that's interesting. But I don't know baked, and we just do more research. So right now the focus is really just to bare minimum, keep it simple,
Yeah.
make that work, and then see if we can do more complex.
And for those who are watching, I don't think we've even fully realized the advantage of tokens. I think that there are a lot of business use cases for them, whether it's being a farmer who wants to tokenize, say, a cow and sell the cow. Like, this is an example I use a lot where, say, you buy a cow, because I'm from the Midwest. People do that here. You buy a half cow, a whole cow, a quarter cow, whatever. And sometimes you may not have the freezer space. Well, you still have to go pick up that cow and then find ways to distribute the meat to everybody else. Whereas if the farmer were to tokenize the cow and the tokens represented a claim on the meat, then you could just sell the tokens on an open marketplace locally, and then whoever else can go pick up the meat. And while that's just like a simple step, that's one thing where now you don't have to spend that time going out and giving the meat away to your friends and family or trying to sell it secondhand. This is just one of the use cases that I find exciting about tokens, where that token may not have a lot of value outside that ecosystem, but it has a lot of value within that ecosystem.
Yeah, and where I mean token usage skyrocket is DAOs and video games. Those are like the two things that are just, I'm seeing hockey stick growth right. These DAO, they're essentially like, they are to organizations what tokens are to money. In that a DAO can be anything. It could be, hey, let's raise a bunch of money to buy art, or hey, let's raise a bunch of money to get Ross Ulbricht out of jail, or let's build a trap, or in our case, we're trying to form a DAO, this freedom enhancing software.
Mm-hmm.
And so a DAO can be anything you want it to be about. DAO has tokens involved. And so those tokens, you need a way. Tokens are great for forming a community within a larger community. So the PSF in the Bitcoin Cash community, or we're actually a cross-chain community, but cryptocurrency has always been about community, and tokens don't change that. It's all about community. But these micro communities, they liquidity, they move value outside of their little bubble into the greater market, and these dexes are critical for that.
Yeah, and the tokens really provide a way, like you said, to bring that community together on a common ground. And when it comes to DAOs, I'm excited about that possibility. I've been talking to the people that I work with locally around here about how, we've kind of done business the same way for the last 150 years, where it's like you got a CEO, you got a board, you have employees, and you have investors, and that's it. And we haven't seen a lot of evolution, and all of a sudden, here's this new idea of the DAO, which isn't necessarily new. I mean, it's just running on a crypto platform type of thing. And now we are finding new ways to do finance through crypto, and now we're finding new ways to do business. There's my cat in the background. And then, so we don't know exactly what it will look like, but I think it opens the door for a lot of possibilities, and I'm very excited about where this can lead.
Yeah, likewise. Okay, so moving on, last sort of thing update on the agenda is the SLP Indexer. There was a flip starter by the BCH community, a replacement for SLPDB. That's going extremely well. So far, it's the tip of the chain. I've got a what's called a fast reindex. So what it does is it every SLP transaction that's ever been made, and so anybody who wants to reindex from Genesis. So if you change parameters, that's what you have to do, is you have to reindex from Genesis. It's much faster because it can basically ignore every transaction as an SLP transaction. It already has this map of every transaction SLP has been made. The re-indexing, cuts the time down from, say, maybe 2 weeks to 4 or 5 days. And so that's convenient. It also, I've got it now staying synced with the tip of the chain. So once it stays synced.
Oh.
And
hey, can you back up just
yeah,
like
sorry.
20 seconds because you cut out a little bit. You was staying synced.
Sure. So yeah, once it syncs, it stays synced. And it's also now working with unconfirmed transactions, just like SLPDB does. That's one of the big advantages of SLP token protocol, is that it's secure zero. You don't need to wait for really accept SLP tokens because they use this property of the DAG. And anyways, people don't need to understand why it works. They just need to know that it's secure. You can securely accept SLP as zero comp transactions.
Secure and in instant. Is that what you said?
Yeah. You don't have to wait around. There's no chance of a double spend. But anyways, the status update here is that it's going really, and we're now starting to add a REST API into the indexer so that you can query address balances and the kinds of things that the information you would want to get out of such an indexer. We're starting to add that. It's not accurate. That's sort of the next big thing is actually working on accuracy. And like right now, I don't believe it actually tracks burned tokens, and so that's the next thing I need to focus on. Accurately accounting for burned tokens.
Yeah.
But, progress on that is going very well.
That's something I'm really excited about, and especially in my area, because I do see the SLP token. It is really easy to use. It's really easy to produce. I see it going, like right now, a lot of the gaming's in the Ethereum or the ETH layer 2 markets. I do really think with Smart BCH and once the SLP DEX is really going, we're going to see the gaming community come over here because it's cheaper. It's way cheaper and easier to produce using SLP tokens, NFTs, or families of NFTs and things like that. And speaking of burn, I had the idea. I'm going to attempt to do this because I'm learning Blender. I have a bell that I created, so I'm going to try to separate it. And I thought it'd be cool to create something that when you burn an SLP token, the bell actually rings. So you would send it to a wallet address to burn it, and then the bell would ring as a burn. And then I thought, how cool would that be to do it with PSF tokens, so that when we do our quarterly burn, it's like a bell is ringing, to accompany it.
Well, I've got that set up to send me an email whenever a significant amount of PSF tokens get burned, whether it's paying the pay to write database or paying for a fullstack.cash. I will get an email. It's just to me, but yeah, so that would be the equivalent of ringing a bell.
Yeah.
Just so I can go look at the transaction and see how much was burned.
It'd just be fun
These
to have
guys
the host
from
do it.
if you know another Aaron, which are doing this Bitcoin payment module.
Yes.
These guys keep interesting blockchain to hardware interaction. They already done something on this before. It was about the locking and unlocking the doors, I think.
Yeah. Aaron will show me.
They are doing now some improvement. I helped them a little.
Yeah.
But they will use now the MQTT, I think, to do some IoT stuff with the blockchain. So it will be something interesting in the future. Like when you burn the token, it can do fancy stuff.
Yeah.
Or when the temperature increases, something happens. Like
these types of use cases, I mean, they're important, but the thing that is required to make them a reality is a well-running indexer.
Yes.
And that's what's been holding this stuff back. It's not that you just that running SLPDB requires 32 gigabytes of RAM, and that's the only way. I mean, without relying on a third party, that you can track these things. And so I put some stats. We have a Telegram channel dedicated to the indexer, and so I did some stats throughout indexing the entire chain. The new indexer does not use 4 gigabytes of memory. I think it uses more, usually around 2. So that's a more than a 10x improvement over SLPDB, and it's going to allow more embedded devices to work with tokens and not necessarily have to rely on a third party. So I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited for all these applications, and I in my mind, the only reason they haven't taken off is just because it's so hard to maintain and run this infrastructure, and there's so few people willing to do that and provide that as a service.
Do you want me to share that link to that group in the chat here on YouTube?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say I talked to Aaron. I've been talking to him, and he's interested in integrating the SLP stuff as well once that gets online. So I think a lot of people are excited about the work you're doing with the SLP indexer, and interested to start developing on top of it once it is to a stable place.
Yeah. Likewise. So I wanted to transition from that, just give us the opportunity to pick up this discussion on the Minting Council. And also, I don't know if you have any updates, Stoyan, on the minting, but yeah, regardless of that, like at some point, yeah, if you have an update, go ahead and give us an update on that.
It's not exactly my update, but it's like a topic for discussion more than something that I improved too much, because I hit some it's not problem, but I don't know what to decide. So if I can share just my screen for a minute.
Yeah, go for it. I'll switch over once your screen is sharing.
Okay, it should be this one maybe.
Cool.
Can you see this browser stuff?
We see your desktop.
Let me I'll bring
maybe it's not
no, hold on. Oh yeah, we do see his desktop.
Okay, so I will share the other one there. Maybe this one? Brave browser. Maybe this one will do the job. How about this one?
Yep.
The green stuff. Is it there?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we got it.
Okay, so if you remember the discussions from the previous week, in order to have the multi-sig transaction, we need like 5 in the moment. Like if we decide on 3 from 5, we will need 5 public keys, and we will need 3 signatures. The point that I reached was there is some specification from the 2 years, and these examples, they're a little older. So what is this specification talking about? It's in the moment two different modes of these signatures which are created. In the mode 1, the first bit, it's op 0, like you put here 0, but the transactions are in this ECDC format. I think it's the old one. And there's mode 2, where this the first byte is which one of the public keys these transactions are corresponding to. For example, if you have the first, the third, and the 5th public key, you will put here some bits that these signatures are corresponding to these keys. And in this case, all of the signatures will be in this new format. the what was the name, the Schnorr.
Yeah, Schnorr.
Is it
Yeah.
proper? So I'm not sure which one of these we should implement, because this one is a classic one. All of
Yeah.
these
Uh,
examples are in this format, but the new one is this Schnorr stuff, which is still not supported by the hardware's wallets, for example.
yeah, I would recommend using ECDSA because the EC is elliptic curve. So that's all the same stuff that Bitcoin was originally built with.
Yeah.
And there's just a ton of support and libraries for working with elliptic curve signatures. Whereas Schnorr is very new and there's just not a lot of support for it yet.
Well,
But in the
Schnorr's been
moment,
around for a while, but it was had a copyright or something on it, and that's why it wasn't used for a long time. And then I think
But
it
in the
just came
moment,
up in
most of
2018.
the library's default format is Schnorr. In BCH
Oh,
JS,
really?
if you don't, in BCH JS, if you don't put anything for the hash, it will use Schnorr.
Oh, that's interesting.
Really?
That must have been something they slipped in. Well, so when for the encrypted messaging, like at message.fullstack.cash, I actually don't use BCHJS for that. I have all the code for that in BCH message lib, which is an NPM library, and a repository. I can send you the link for that. And it uses ECDSA, and that's interesting. I didn't realize because we started to implement, because BCHJS was forked from Bitbox, and we implemented the Schnorr stuff, sort of shortly before our team was let go, and so it's very half baked. So I didn't realize that they had snuck that in there.
I think maybe, I'm not sure, but I think from what I tried until now, if you don't specify, because most of these methods, they have like, for example, this hash type, or you can put like a signature type, but if you don't put anything, it's using this Schnorr stuff. So if you
That's
want to
interesting.
use the elliptic curve one, we need to exactly to specify it explicitly. So use this one.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah.
Well,
okay.
yeah, Stoyan, I'd love to collaborate with you on this. I can share with you the way that I do the elliptic curve encryption for the messaging, because it should be the same thing, and I'd love to, if we can sync the code for the multi-segmenting and use all the same libraries that we use in message.fullstack.cache, then hopefully we can get it to a point where someone can just create a wallet in wallet.full or message.fullstack.cache and use that use the same key for both participating in a multi-segment, but also like encrypted messaging.
It will be great. It will be maybe save me also a lot of reinventing the wheel. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd hate to see you get stuck in a circle with the Schnorr signature stuff, because there's big holes in support for that right now.
You and I talked about the Schnorr a little bit when I was talking about securing NFTs, because I wrote up a paper on doing it with the ECDSA model, because that's what Bitcoiners use. And then I was like, oh, well, they wanted to go to Schnorr after that, but I think it was 2018 when when that got released, and they really started saying, we're going to go over to Schnorr, but I don't know if it ever actually happened. So I want to say hi to Aaron with the Bitcoin payment module. He just showed up in the chat, says, sorry I'm late. It's good to have you here, Aaron. Got a lot of good Aarons in this group, got to tell you.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so
I'm just, go ahead.
Sorry, so we can continue from this like technical one to the more common discussion about all the multi-sig and stuff like this one. Maybe the topic.
Yeah, that's great, because I feel like we're getting close, and so it's good for us to start making plans. So yeah, we can already do multi-segmenting on Avalanche, and if we can get this figured out, then we'll be able to do multi-segmenting on BCH and eCache, and just it'd be nice to be able to do it on BCH just because that's what we're already geared up for. Otherwise, we're going to have to make plans to make some other chain our primary chain.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so this discussion is kind of assuming that we'll get the multi-sig minting figured out on BCH. Although I guess it doesn't really matter. But what we got to talking about in the VIP room was this idea of forming a minting council. And so the whole goal of this is to decentralize the power to mint new tokens so that it's not held by any one party and there's no one central point of failure. And so raises this question, this eternal question in crypto, which is who decides? And how do we make a fair way of who decides? And so what I'm kind of leaning towards would be burn 2,000 PSF tokens, and maybe there's a merit in there somewhere. So maybe it's not just a quantity of tokens, but a quantity times a period of time. But anyways, you take them out of existence to basically show your dedication, and then you get an NFT. And what I'd like to see is, once we get into a groove with minting, with this minting council, is that we'd rotate the wallet every quarter, every 3 months, and that would let people who are not responsive sort of fall off, and new people to join. And these are just my rough sketches of an idea, and this is what I want to get your guys' feedback on. But that's essentially kind of what we talked about, and we kicked around a few other ideas. And so I just wanted to open the floor to other discussion around this scheme. If you guys think it's a bad idea, or if you guys have better ideas that you want to share.
Well, I think we talked about in the chat, we talked about merit a little bit. We talked about quantity. We talked about how do we, so you mint these NFTs, you got an NFT, you can be on the minting council, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to rotate wallets. A question I have is, well, who's in charge of rotating the wallet? Does that become a central point of failure for something like this? And then with the NFTs, how, one of the suggestions I put out is maybe you burn the NFT and get airdropped a new one. So by burning it, you show active participation, or something like that. Because we don't want people to just have the NFT and then they go dark and now nothing can be minted, right? We have to solve that problem.
Yep, exactly. Well, so I've been thinking about this because I personally have to be careful because I have my personal interest, but then I have the greater interest of the group to consider. So let me use that to try and answer some of these questions you just raised. So what I want to do personally is I would want to maintain slightly less than 50% of the minting tokens. And since I've been working on this project and I probably have more PSF tokens than anybody else, I could manage that. And I want less than 50% because I don't want the state to be able to put a gun to my head and force me to do something. And so that's why I want less than 50%, but I want probably as much as on a personal level, as much as I can, so that I have my own personal interests represented. And so I would expect everyone on the council to have that same mentality.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just want one, so in that scenario, one person could have more than one minting token. And we couldn't really prevent that. The minting token itself is the Sybil resistance, the burning of the scarce resource, which is PSF tokens, or merit, would be our Sybil resistance. But we can't prevent some one person from doing that multiple times.
Well, and they become scarce because it's a multi-sig generation of the token, right? So some scarcity is introduced where we have to essentially vote to create new tokens. So if you burn your token and we never vote to create new tokens, there you are.
Yeah, exactly. And so one reason we would rotate this wallet, or we rotate the wallet every quarter, and for several reasons. I mean, one would be that's an opportunity to bring new tokens into existence, which is the whole point of the minting council. The other is to sort of assess people who are non-responsive, and then that way we don't get too many non-responsive people that would actually interfere with our ability to either rotate the wallet or mint new tokens.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would be a responsibility. You'd be expected, to show up and to participate. And with this encrypted messaging, we can keep everything private. Like, we don't actually need to know who the people are. Basically, if you have the NFT, you're on the council.
Yeah.
And it's worth exploring, like, how could this go horribly wrong? in my mind, I'm starting to feel like these are balancing, these trade-offs are balancing one another out. But if people have concerns, like, I want to hear them, or just better ideas.
Well, I think we have to have some way like you said, weed out the non-active participants. And maybe that's something like you come to the quarterly meeting, and at that point, the minting council votes, and those who are there to vote receive a new token or a new NFT, that represents voting for next quarter. And the old NFT no longer works, Maybe that's how you do it. Maybe it's maybe you want something to where it's like, hey, I really can't be there that day, but I still want to participate. So maybe it's something that's an active thing. That's where I think the burning would come in. So if you burn that token and you can show proof of burn, that still shows that you're active, and you could get airdropped a new NFT token for voting.
Stoyan, how does this reflect on the technicals as you understand it from minting?
Do we need so complicated stuff at all? Like, I mean, it's one particular task we're talking now about, minting new tokens. So if we have 5 of 10 multi-sig wallets, is this enough? I mean, we're not so big community to rotate tokens and everything. It will just for minting. If it's for everything else, it's another question. But we're talking now just about the minting. So if we just want to distribute the power to be not everything to Chris, we just make a bigger 5 of 10 wallet. And in this case, at least 5 people can vote from these 10 people which are responsible. I think our whole community is 10 people, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I'm relying on the size of the community to bootstrap this and work out the bugs. But I am looking with an eye to something that could scale to a larger organization.
So if we have something like this Gnosis stuff where we can something like vote or sign transactions, not only minting one, I think it's meaningful to have this console. But it will not be minting console. It will be more like executors, or I don't know what. If they can sign transactions for payments or for something, it will make sense to rotate keys and stuff like this. If it's only for minting, I think it's maybe too much. Just a personal opinion. Like a technique, it's not so complicated like a technique. You have NFTs, mint them, burn them, over. It's not rocket science, but we need to decide how much we want to complicate, because every complication of this process means we will have more attack vectors. Like if it's some complicated process, we cannot follow it maybe. What happens, who is now the who, stuff like this one.
And all the administrative overhead. I mean, this is a big reason for us to just move over to, Smart BCH or Avalanche or even like XDAI or the Near protocol to do this, because then we can leverage these. They have tools for specifically this scenario that we can leverage. And then we really just
In this case, it will not boost the PCF token. So it's, let's see, why to shield these networks if we want to have the PCF token more useful?
Yeah. Well, the point is, I mean, there's two sides. There's like the sort of social validity, or almost what you could almost call politics, and then there's like the technical reality. There's like that there's a key that controls the minting, and but at the end of the day, yeah, I'm just kind of trying to restate what you said there, Stoyan. Is just that maybe we're overthinking this in that. At the end of the day, the actual PSF token's not that important because it would take us about 24 hours to switch all the software over to a new token, and airdrop a new token to all the old token holders and just move over to a new token, in a worst case scenario. And so because it's not that the token itself is not that big of a deal, we have the freedom to, I mean, what we're really talking about is just that sort of social dynamic that there's more than just me making decisions, and that we, that's basically what we do right now with voting. Is it's more symbolic. Everybody gets the token voting airdrop, everybody votes, and it's largely just symbolic. It's not like Gnosis where once everybody votes, like it sets off a chain reaction of smart contracts that nobody can stop. And like we don't have that. We don't necessarily need that. We're really just looking to poll the people that matter, the people with skin in the game.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, I think that asking the question, are we overthinking this, is a very valid question.
I like how
interesting. Yeah, it will be more interesting to have more like if you remember our talk with this Avagochi stuff, they have like oracles which are connecting the social activity to tokens. If the people can receive PCF tokens for making a Twitter post automatically, will be a better maybe way than asking them to mint tokens in some console. If they, for example, they get automatically tokens for some social activities, Twitter, Facebook, or somewhere, they will be more interesting, and it will be maybe become a better publicity for the whole community than asking them to participate in somewhere. Okay, you can mint tokens, whatever. They will be not so interested, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that made me think of sort of another side to this whole discussion, which is that Daniel and Gary rely on their salary of PSF tokens to feed themselves, and then these grants that we're getting, they are being used to take PSF tokens out of circulation. So we have already approached a certain level of gravitas with these tokens, and that we have to be good stewards. We can't just willy-nilly, use them. Or at least I feel like a level of fiduciary responsibility, at least to Daniel and Gary, who rely on it in a very serious way, the value of maintaining the value of these tokens. And this is really the whole point of the PSF token, is to incentivize open source development. So I want to be careful with how the token gets used. And that's one of my big fears of creating a minting council, is that people might not take it quite so seriously. And so that's a scary, thing. But I also realize that, like, if for this organization to grow, it's important to give up power and decentralize the power.
I like how
in this case, it's interesting to have some, like most of the communities, they have reward tokens, which is different from the, like in this case, the PSF token. We're interested to be, to become more and more expensive. But it's not good for everyday operations, like voting and stuff like this one, because the people will try to make money from these tokens, which is not so good.
As far as the PSF, though, because of the Bancor protocol, it will reach a certain level where it levels out, right, Chris?
Yeah, it'll essentially become one-to-one with BCH. It'll just like there's no speculative gain to be had.
Yeah.
So if we have something like, I don't know, something for voting and decisions only, is it better than these NFTs that we're talking about? Like something that people can get from social activities or something else, and they can use it for voting.
Okay, so
And
you're talking
decisions.
about receiving tokens for engagement, and
Yeah,
that
yes, like
engagement
this one.
being
So
merit,
reward token,
right?
which is different from the payment tokens, PSF tokens, now which
Yeah.
people's salary.
Well,
Yeah,
I
that's
kind
something
of
to
like this
consider.
idea. I mean, what if you had two? Because you could
Mhm.
still do the burn like you're talking about, but then
Mhm.
offer people a way to get these other tokens, and those tokens could be proof of merit, essentially, for other people that maybe don't have the money to participate in it.
They also
Yeah,
can
if,
be
if
on
it.
different blockchain if we don't have enough
Yeah.
tools.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it may. I mean,
and
if it makes sense, we can definitely do it. I mean, there's examples of that with like MakerDAO. They have the Maker token, which is their governance token, and then they have DAI, which is the stablecoin.
yeah.
So we could definitely have 2 or 3 tokens with 2 or 3 different roles if as long as it makes sense. I mean, like you said earlier, that makes more complexity, and that's a problem in and of itself.
So
Richie in the chat says, in the Telegram chat says, so the PSF token needs to be tied to some sort of service offering. You get a vote towards some sort of decision-making process. That can work, I think. And then another one, your lie stops here. An automated distribution makes sense.
Yeah.
but
So I
this
don't
will
know
be,
if we're going to reach any sort of conclusion with this discussion, but I
no,
thought it would
it's just
just
maybe
healthy to have.
for future thoughts, because there's disadvantages also. How you decide which is social activity and which is coding.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
you pay PSF tokens, but rewards or something. It's
Yeah.
my point.
Yeah,
in
like
the,
I could definitely see us creating a second token just for tipping, just for social interaction. That and with the dexes, it could build up a natural, market-based connection to our original PSF token, like the Spice token did. And we could use that more liberally, whereas the PSF token as it exists now would be more of our currency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah. So the original question was, is it worth to create so very complicated tools only for minting, or is it good to be something more common for like multi-sig for transaction signing, which will be better for the future maybe?
I think the question is, how do we hedge ourselves against some people coming into the community as in a drive-by fashion and making it onto the minting council and then going away and then losing that ability to mint because we don't have the signatures to mint.
Yeah, or the opposite threat, which is that's sort of an omission attack, for I don't know, there might be a better word, but someone basically like a significant quantity of the minting council like just going dark. That would be a problem. Another problem would be like a whale coming in and just buying a bunch of PSF tokens and trying to like that could be an attack, right? Like if it costs $10,000 to buy enough of these minting tokens to then willy-nilly mint tokens and crash the price, like that could be a profitable thing to do.
Your lie stops here in the Telegram chat. What if the token is limited and distributed proportionally to merit, so newcomers would have less of an impact, i.e. whale, just what we're talking about? I can see what you're talking about there, because maybe even purchasing tokens is based upon the merit of having tokens. So, like, you can only purchase so much at first, and then you have to show merit of having those for some period of time before you can purchase more. I don't know. But again, that gets back to the complication issue that Storian is bringing up.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, the real problem we're trying to solve is just decentralize the minting so that there's no one single point of failure. But
Yes.
any solution that we come up with, we have to weigh that against, other trade-offs that we can think of, and attack factors and complexity.
Well, auto distribution would solve that. No. Yeah, maybe. But we are kind of wanting to keep the PSF on the SLP chain, right? And not necessarily go to
Well,
something where
Wowzers,
we
can
do.
you? I'm not sure what you mean by auto distribution. Can you?
I was just suggesting that, like, having it programmed somehow, one of the coins programmed to be distributed.
Like on a smart contract chain?
Yeah, I wouldn't know the technicality, but something like that, yes.
Well, that would involve moving the PSF token over to another chain, like you were talking about, right, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, we can do much more sophisticated things on a smart contract chain. I mean, what we do right now for the voting is we can calculate the merit of all the addresses in existence holding PSF tokens, and that's great for votes. That's been working really well for voting. Which then, I take those votes, and then I have the minting baton, so I mint them in, as a result of the vote. And like I said, so we're actually functioning pretty well right now without having a sort of automated system. It's just that, and we're also like sort of protected in that, like I said before, the token itself doesn't really matter. If I accidentally minted the minting baton, or some government agency didn't like what we were doing, anyone's free to fork the entire organization and airdrop a new token. But it's more the optics. That's really the problem. It's the perception that there's some one individual who has control of all these tokens. I wouldn't expect a government agency to appreciate the nuance there, that the token doesn't really matter, and is just a medium. That's the main thing. On a personal level, I guess, the main thing I'm trying to solve by having a multi-sig wallet.
Basically, how do you mitigate risk without opening yourself up to risk of failure down the line?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy Money in the chat says send them the hashtag GTU on social media! ! And then Richie says maybe you can hold it for a time period before voting with the coins, or voting for something that has a larger impact than other decisions. So.
Mm-hmm.
We want to thank everybody that's participating in these
Yeah.
chats. We really, really appreciate it. So keep it up, and we'll give you a shout out, and we'll read your comments on air. And if you have any questions for the great minds of Stoyan and Chris and David and others who are on here, I just feel humbled to be with these guys. You can go ahead and ask your questions, and we'll try to get them answered too.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if I don't think we're gonna strike some perfect decision in this meeting. I just thought it was healthy to have the conversation.
Oh yeah.
And I really do appreciate all the participation. So let's go ahead and wrap this up, and let's keep the conversation going in the Telegram channel.
Well,
and
can I say something on the NFT front real quick? As people know, I work a lot with NFTs. I'm doing 3D assets over here. If you check out my Twitter at Shoemaker360, you can see some of the NFTs I've used within Unity and within Oculus VR. And I did drop in the chat for people to check out. There is another crypto group out there that they just had a meeting in October in which they worked with MetaMask to port MetaMask over to Firefox Reality. Firefox Reality is a web-based VR browser for there's my wife back there. She was waving hi to everybody. Firefox Reality is a web-based VR browser that allows people to go in through Oculus or Vive or any of the other headsets and view the web in VR and participate in WebGL applications. And the implications of this mean that now you can create your NFT, and because there are Unity games that function with WebGL that can pull in those NFTs, we are really, really close to the point where people can pull in make game assets as NFTs and pull them into virtual realities and into the metaverse or whatever you want to call it. And if this gets legs and traction, it will really promote the decentralization of the metaverse and NFTs in that space. So it's really cool. Check out the video. Audio is a little off because I think it's head bass.
Aaron, put a link to your Twitter account in the Telegram channel, because people should be following you on Twitter. I've just really been enjoying the short videos that you've been uploading there to see your progress, which has been amazing. You're getting so close to being able to attach a metaverse object to an NFT.
Yeah. I have been experimenting within Unity, loading the assets. I think I showed loading an asset from IPFS the other week. You guys can check that on one of the videos. And then, but the next will be loading a fully realized digital asset into the Unity. And so we'll be playing with that in the future here. So
nice.
I will include that link there.
I just dropped it into the chat.
Thanks,
there
man.
to your Twitter profile.
So yeah, you can see some videos of me holding an action figure in VR and using a war club that I captured to smash a box and spray painting on a graffiti wall. So all things that are coming through NFTs and 3D assets. So very cool.
Yeah, does anybody else have anything they want to bring up before we wrap it up?
Anyone want to tell me about AVAX a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. Well, so just a foundational level, Avalanche or AVAX. So there's the protocol, and then there's the chain. The protocol is called Avalanche, and then the chain, I believe, is still called Avalanche. But they're a blockchain of blockchain. So they have three primary chains: the C chain, the X chain, and the P chain. So the C chain is the contract chain, and that's the EVM compatible version. So they have a bridge where you can move Ethereum and other ERC20 and ERC721 tokens from Ethereum over to the Avalanche C chain. And then they have the X chain, which is UTXO based. So it's similar to Bitcoin in that regard. And they have a way to move tokens between the chains. So you can, and we have a bridge built between Bitcoin Cash and the X chain. So it's theoretically possible to take a PSF token, move it to the Avalanche X chain, move it to the P chain, and then move it over to Ethereum from there. I've never tried to do it, but it's theoretically possible. And then the P chain, yeah,
I'm going to try.
The P chain is. I need to set up the bridge, which is something that is on the list to do. The P chain is what they're currently developing, and that lets you build your own blockchain, like your own private blockchain on top of the P chain, and then you've got this base Avalanche, these three base Avalanche chains, so that you're not like an island. You have a way to move assets from these other chains into your private blockchain and back again. And with these private blockchains, you can institute your own private rules. So like a consortium of real estate companies that have to worry about compliance and stuff like that, they can have their own blockchain for that. So that's really the business model, if you will, of Avalanche. That's what they're going after. They're not trying to be money. They're just trying to be the best blockchain for business.
On their technical side, they use a gossip protocol, which is different than a DAG and different than proof of work. And that you can read that. I think the Team Rocket paper that came out in 2017 or 2018. You can read about the gossip protocol and how it functions.
And it's much higher bandwidth in terms of trying to run a full node. It's not possible to run an Avalanche full node on a DSL connection. You need low latency and a significant amount of bandwidth to run a node, which I think is actually a big red flag. It's one of the reasons why I still prefer Bitcoin Cash, and I'm interested to see how the hybrid eCash turns out, if they're gonna suffer from these same bandwidth issues that Avalanche is suffering from. I think Bitcoin Cash with double spend proofs is for someone in South America or Africa, from an infrastructure standpoint, that is the better way to go.
Well,
When you
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
just when you say low latency, are you talking what's that new hard drive? But either case, a solid state hard drive with like a fast computer with a lot of memory. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm talking about actual internet connection.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I know
Yeah,
they
the
tried
hardware
to.
requirements are not that high, but the internet
They have a
connections.
nice public notes. If you want to try it, they have like testnet and UseOnNet. You
Mhm.
can
Fuji,
you
right?
can use the PSF command line wallet already with the testnet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Stoyan, for
Yeah.
adding testnet capabilities to the PSFX wallet.
So they have a nice public RPC points for the C chain. Means you can try MetaMask stuff, and you can move between the chains with they have a nice web wallet also.
And
So
Gabriel Cardona's
need-
over there, right, Chris?
Yes, so no need to install immediately your own node. First try the existing stuff, and then you decide, okay, I will have my own node.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I played
Mhm.
around with it a bit, not too much. I've minted some tokens on there, and it's really easy to use their wallet to switch between the chains. You literally just choose where you want to switch, how much you want to switch, and you switch. So
Yeah.
Thanks,
They've
Phil.
got. I'm pretty bullish on it. I mean, they've got a lot of good things. I think I pointed out the only one sort of bad thing that I can think of. Everything
they've been trying to deal
else
with
is
that
like
too.
perfect.
They've been trying to
Yeah.
deal with that too. We've had what's his name from Avalanche on here, and he's talking about
Mhm.
how they're trying to really decrease the size of running a full node. And that
Yes.
that can always be a challenge.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So it's there is no good or bad. It's just preference and trade-off.
Yeah, I like the idea of Avalanche because from my standpoint of creating NFTs, we're generating an NFT on Ethereum level 1 is very expensive. Where it's actually probably less expensive to generate it in Avalanche or BCH and then transfer it to Ethereum, because the transfer gas fees are actually less than the smart contract production gas fees. So I think what we're going to see as these bridges come up is a lot of these NFT creators are going to create on a chain like Smart BCH or AVAX or eCash, and then they're going to transfer through Avalanche to Ethereum to sell in the marketplace, because honestly, Ethereum is still the marketplace for NFTs right now, but where you get the most money. But, being able to mint in the cheapest way possible and then transfer to other chains, whether it's Near, whether it's, any of the other NFT protocol chains, I think a lot of producers of NFTs are going to find that very valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Oh, we
Oh,
missed
you
that.
kind of broke up there.
oh, I just said thanks so much. Wonderful.
No problem.
Cheers. Okay, guys, with that, let's go ahead and wrap it up.
Another great meeting. Thanks, Aaron, for doing the hosting.
No problem whatsoever. Let me
Yeah,
pull
you
up
guys
the
are great.
outro.
All of you. I always feel so lucky every week to be able to come together and just participate in this brain trust that we got going on.
It is very cool to work with all you guys as well. And please check out the Telegram. For those who are watching online, I think most of you are in the Telegram group already. Is it at PSF Foundation on Telegram? I forget what it is. T.me/permissionless software. I'm going to drop it into the chat right now for anybody. And yeah, feel free to hit us up on Telegram if you have any questions for anything to do with NFT or 3D assets. You can hit me up personally, and we will talk to you guys later, I guess.
Cheers.
Thanks, sir. Bye.